Good evening and happy to Sunday to all of you who may be listening. I hope all of you Yankees out there had a wonderful 4th of July, eating your body mass in some form of meat and blowing things up in the sky. That is certainly a great holiday that we should all celebrate because it is good to be living in the United States of America, as far as I'm concerned. And, getting to celebrate our nation's independence is also a good time to start thinking about our nation in general, what track she's on, and what we would like to see happening in the future. And all of this is kind of combining with my study of canon law right now. And I'm taking a particular class right now. It's got kind of a funny name, Special Issues in Lay Ministry. And I think anytime that you've got a class with a name like that, it's got a bunch of things that they don't know where else to put in the program, but you really should cover. And so basically, this canon's covering the rights and duties of all the Christian faithful and associations, lay associations of the Christian faithful. What do we do about those? It's only a 2-credit class, so it'll actually be ending early. So that'll be nice. I'll have a little extra time to do other things. And so in that class, we are walking through the obligations and rights of all the Christian faithful. It's a particular section of the Code of Canon Law. It's much heralded by people as being a great thing. And I think there's something about it that maybe, just maybe, our nation could learn. So here we have it. Well, let me make that a little bigger so that people at home can, it's not scaling automatically. That's just great. Gotta love the Vatican website. Okay, that's as big as we're getting it. So this is coming after all of the preliminary stuff. How do we do law? Blah, 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 blah. And they start us off with this Canon 208 right here. From their rebirth in Christ, there exists among all the Christian faithful a true equality regarding dignity and action, by which they all cooperate in the building up of the body of Christ according to each one's condition and function. So that sounds like it's going to flatten things out entirely until you get to that last section, according to each one's condition and function, where it's like, well, yes, they all have equality, but people are in different conditions and they have different functions. And so that's where the inequality comes in. Now, that's not the part that I'm super interested in. If you look up here, you notice it talks about the obligations and rights of all the Christian faithful. It puts the obligations first. Let's just take a look at that. So Canon 209, the Christian faithful, even in their own manner of acting, are always obliged to maintain communion with the church. So that's what the people who put this code together thought the number one obligation should be in this section of rights and obligations. And this actually plays well with the church's theology because as far as the Catholic Church is concerned, we're the body of Christ on earth. And so if you want to cling to Christ with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength, you need to cling to the church in the same manner. So right here at the beginning of this list of obligations and rights, it puts this obligation forward. And then the second paragraph is, with great diligence, they are to fulfill the duties which they owe to the universal church and the particular church to which they belong according to the prescripts of law. All righty, so we're just starting off with these obligations here. And then here's the second one here. And oh boy, my mouse is acting funny. Canon 210. Arguably, you could have put this one in the place of Canon 209. You could go either way. All the Christian faithful must direct their efforts to lead a holy life and to promote the growth of the church and its continual sanctification according to their own condition. So we're all called to this. This is the legal expression of the Second Vatican Council's teaching on the universal call to holiness, something that's always been a part of the church's doctrine, that Vatican II sought to recover and emphasize. That holiness isn't just something that priests have to do, something that all the Christian faithful are called to. That kind of a canon was not present in the 1917 code for the laity. It was only present for priests and religious. So you can see Yes, the Second Vatican Council did have its effect on the 83 Code. And here we've got Canon 211. All the Christian faithful have the duty and right to work so that the divine message of salvation more and more reaches all people in every age and in every land. Now, if you pay attention to American political discourse, you never hear about anything simultaneously being a duty and a right. In American political discourse, what we hear the most about is our rights, our rights, our rights, our rights, our rights, our rights. The only time obligations seem to come up is when tax season is in there. Oh, we're all obligated to pay our taxes. And I guess we have to follow the law, as much as we possibly can. But here, the Code of Canon Law in this section on the obligations and rights of all the Christian faithful starts off with the obligations. I think that's a very important thing. The way that the church thinks about rights is always under the heading of obligation, is of being necessarily attached to obligations. It's like the way the church thinks about its rights, fundamental human rights, and those rights which exist in the law, is you have an obligation to something. You are participating in something that's bigger than you are. And in order to participate, you need to have the legal authority, you need to have the rights to carry out these obligations, right? When you link them together that way, these rights make a whole lot more sense. They're not just something you're entitled to because somebody said so, or something you're entitled to because everybody's special. There's something you're entitled to, they're your right, in order that you can carry out duties. And if I had to guess, and I'm not 100% sure about this because I'm reading the wrong kind of literature right now, but if we were to go back to the way of speaking of the founding fathers, the people who drafted the Declaration of Independence, people who drafted the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the early laws in our country, pretty sure what we would find is this emphasis on the duties of the citizens of this country, that we are together undertaking this experiment in self-governance, and that places a heavy burden on you. We're not just going to outsource all of this to the king. We're not just going to outsource all of this to the nobility or whoever can take in charge. You, citizen, are going to be the one who is responsible for making this governance work, for making our mutual life together as a nation happen. And so in order to make that happen, you have the right to free speech. We're insisting that you partake in the governance of our country. Therefore, you have the right to speak what you're really thinking in terms of governing the country. You have the right to assembly. Obviously, you can't just do this as an individual. These political parties and groups of like-minded people are inevitable. So you have the right to the assembly there. You have the right to worship as you see fit, since that is an incredibly important thing as far as the founders were thinking. You have all of these different rights which derive from your responsibilities. And when we think of it in those terms, when we think of it as we have these responsibilities first and the rights that follow after them, the rights become a lot less made up. They become a lot less capricious. They're not something that we can just multiply indefinitely, because we don't want to multiply people's obligations and duties indefinitely. That's not how it works. We're only finite. We can only do so much. So your rights should be tied to what you're being asked to do and how you're being asked to participate in. Your rights should be the means by which you carry out these obligations. So, happy 4th of July weekend to everybody who enjoyed it. And as we recall, the rights that our founding fathers and those who served our country have lived for and have died for, let us remember also the obligations that go along with it. And to the best of our ability, according to our own condition and function, to participate in the governance of our great and good nation. That's what I think. So there you have it. Lachlan or Ixnant. I'm just going to go with Ixnant. That's easier to say somehow. I remember there being some of that in the Federalist Papers. Praise God. I'm not just making stuff up here. I have enough canon law stuff to read right now where I don't really have the luxury of just diving into the Federalist Papers. But maybe someday I will. And speaking of a Federalist, maybe someday Mark's computer will come in here. Hello, Mark. You've changed your shirt.
Yeah, well, I do the book club shirt for the book club. I don't. Special shirt.
Huh.
Plus, I had to cook on the grill. I wasn't going to wear that shirt while cooking on the grill.
Fair enough. Grilling.
You gotta have a uniform.
Well, did you fulfill your obligations?
No, I realized I psyoped myself by buying a grill. Now I'm doing some of the cooking. I'm like, wait a minute, how did that happen? Oh, you idiot! You bought a grill.
Well, yeah, but you have to use it now because I'm sure you did a little bit of market research and you're like, okay, yeah, this kind of grill. So let me ask you, gas or charcoal?
Gas. Charcoal. Ugh. You got to cook a lot of food to justify charcoal, man.
Okay. I just like playing with fires, so
Fire good.
Yeah, playing with fire. So I'm usually a charcoal man here. But you know what? As long as you're fulfilling your obligations to somebody to keep them fed, then I'm not going to complain about it too much.
What's weird, right? Because nobody talks about, the reason why you have obligations is partly because you have them to yourself too. Like, oh, it's like, yeah, like I don't want to be responsible for feeding anybody. Screw that. It's like, yeah, but you have to feed yourself. And then it's, oh, wait a minute, you already have that obligation.
If only
spending it.
If only a great orator were to come in here and speak about people treating themselves as if they were somebody that they were responsible for.
I know.
Boy, like, wouldn't that have an effect on people to hear that kind of a message?
It might. I don't know. We'll never know, Father. We'll never know. That? One of the great mysteries of the universe. No, the real question is, why did somebody have to do that, and why isn't
you do anything like fun
Bishop
for the
Barron, for example, reaching that same audience with that message? I just see a gap, right? The recession of the church. Like, they should have been doing it all along. Still not doing it, by the way, even though the path has been shown. You too could walk this path. Do you have a nice Peterson clip up somewhere?
No, I'm just wondering how much latency I'm going to have tonight. It appears to be a lot.
Uh-oh. We'll have to figure that out.
Dawn is not amused by your use of the gas grill.
I don't know. The women did a lot of the making sure there was a fire going too. So There was usually 24/7 fire not too long ago. That's why oil was such a big deal. Whale oil in particular. In case you haven't been watching the book club. How latency
Oh man.
ridden
Okay.
are
Looks like
you?
we're back in.
Oh, did you get stopped entirely? Is that
Um, yeah, like when it's working well, it's working just fine. Like I'm getting between 1.5 and 2.5 megabits per second now, and then but if it drops again, it gets really bad. So
yeah, that's not sufficient at
see,
all.
here's the difference. It's the outdoors.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's unkempt.
Outdoors.
Women shouldn't be outdoors without the protection of men, right? Like, yeah. So you shouldn't be cooking because they've got to nurture the food. Men can't nurture anything, but we know how to burn meat, so like that's easy. Yeah, that's true. That's how it works. You don't want to be in the wild. We had to come in
Yeah.
because the mosquitoes and the ants and everything. I was like, all right, we're done with dinner. Let's race into the house. It's too many bugs. Uh-oh. Father's frozen now. That's not good. Are you back? Oh no. It's still flaky. We gotta fix that. What's going on up there?
It looks like once a minute, my internet basically just drops out.
Fantastic. That's an interesting pattern. I wonder what's causing that to
This
happen.
does. Yeah, I've got. I'm about ready to put up Task Manager in the. Maybe we'll just put that
Yeah,
up in the corner. I don't know.
could
Just so
be.
everybody can see this. This is what we're talking about tonight. The open mic. We're gonna look at. We're gonna look at Task Manager. We're gonna look at. And see, the thing is that the more internet goes through, the more it's going to have to calculate these things. You can
True.
also see all of the specs on my work laptop here. Oh, interesting. Yeah, so now it
Well, yeah,
seems
we
to be
get
fine. Maybe it's just the attention is making it behave properly.
maybe. That's very strange.
Yeah, it's running pretty low right now. I guess it's actually probably a little bit lower because you're coming in at 80 pick.
Uh-oh. Bang. Everything went up. Yikes. That's probably
Yeah.
all resends and retries from packet drop. That would be my guess.
Yeah, it sounds about right because a lot of times when you're dropping out, you'll start speaking very quickly. And I mean, even for somebody from Boston. Um,
Fair.
yeah. Here's another difference between men and women. Men could just sit here and watch this graph for a while,
Yeah. Women will
comment
get
on it.
bored. No
Oh,
beauty.
man, why is it varying so much? I don't have an Ethernet port here that I can plug into. This is the first thing I looked for when I got in here and not appear to function. So that's all Wi-Fi.
Why not? Run a cable.
Yeah.
It might not be the
Down to the
wireless. It
first
might be
floor.
the Yeah, why not? I everybody's house I go to, I wire them. Hey, you need wires. Let's put some wires all the time. Yeah.
In my
Also
in
do
my
a
bedroom in
constant.
Fargo, I've got the hard wiring right through the wall, And so unless all of the internet's down, which has happened, I bet you this is just crumbling DC architecture right here, or infrastructure.
It could be anything. I mean, it could be radio interference from some weird random source that's affecting just the Wi-Fi. That happens. So, or it could be just the Wi-Fi is super congested.
One of those other priests. They're trying to use my bandwidth.
Yeah, or maybe one of the machines is infected and the botnet's using the bandwidth. Who knows? Like, that's the problem now. Is
this is what? Were you a nurse, Don? The EKG strip of your internet.
She's not wrong.
It's basically it. Yeah. Oh man.
And just doesn't show packet drops and retries, which would be a more interesting metric.
Yeah, I'd probably have to install a different program on my computer, right?
No, I think I don't know Windows 11 that well because, like,
I'm still running Windows 10.
Well, whatever. They're the same. 10 and 11 are the same. It used to be if you go into control panel under network interfaces, it would give you live stats on the interface. And so you could watch packet drops and retries on those sometimes. But yeah, there's a set of better tools in Power Toys, which everybody should be running Power Toys if you have Windows anyway. There's a better task manager and better this and better that.
Power Toys. All right. Yeah, usually the open source stuff is like people really love it, so it ends up good.
Power Toys is actually a Microsoft product that's free.
Oh, well, I'll be. How about that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what the engineers make for themselves then.
Pretty much. Yeah. Although it's not that there's some, I don't like their task manager's not great. It's better than the default, but it's not. It's no great shakes.
Yeah. Did you get up in?
Go ahead.
Did you get into any trouble on the 4th?
No, the 4th, all we did was host some friends and use the barbecue and the floor, the outdoor floor. It's not the outdoor flooring is under the pole shed, although it's not complete, but it's complete enough. Like most of it's there. We've been using that, so I ate outside tonight. Got the grill going because the grill's on that outdoor flooring. So yeah, we didn't do much. Yesterday I was at the lake, in the water and on a jet ski and stuff. That was fun.
Nice. Oh man, that could be me, but I'm in the city. Yesterday, I went to the Post Office Museum.
Oh, cool.
National Post Office Museum. And I tell you what, the way that they're sorting mail these days, like the big machines, what are they? It's some crazy statistic. I think they said that there's 600 million pieces of mail every day handled by the U.S. Post Office.
Yikes.
So like 2 for every citizen.
Right. That's insane.
It's just wild.
Where is Dawn? Oh my goodness.
So just it's got to be like Texas or something. It
was only 90 here. Like it was super humid, so I cut down some tree this morning, but it was too humid to do too much. But it never, I think it hit 90. That was it. Now the past 3 days have been like absolute burners. Oregon doesn't get hot in Oregon.
Well, if you, I mean, that's a great way to make sure you don't get doxxed. Is just look up someplace else and tell people you're from there. But they're having a heat wave on the West Coast right now. I watched this national weather YouTube channel. Some guy from Kentucky does it. So he's got the fun, Kentucky accent. And yeah. You hear about all sorts of stuff. There's going to be a hurricane. Shouldn't be a huge one, but I think it's enough to inconvenience things. So
yeah, I don't pay too much attention to that stuff because I don't live there. But I mean, if it's 107 in Oregon, climate change confirmed, global warming, we're all going to die tomorrow.
Yeah, 107 and probably humid as well. I guess it depends on what side of the mountains you're on, though.
I don't care. 107 is hot. Like the humidity, after a certain point, the humidity's not all that important.
Yeah, it.
That's Death Valley temperatures right there.
Okay, still a dry heat, but there's also a dry heat that you could cook eggs on the pavement with. So,
or
just be careful out there. Yeah, you could also do that. Usually that's not the goal. So,
yeah, I had I forgot my boat shoes when I went to the lake, and the deck was out in the sun, and my bare feet were not happy. We're like, "What are you doing? Don't make us step here." I was like, "Yeah,
trying to get us killed."
Boys.
Yeah.
But once you get in the water, it's not so bad. But like you're on the deck first, it's like, this dock is hot. Help! Yeah, my friend is on the back end of the lake, so it's an interesting area. He's got a little jet ski, and jet skis are fun.
How do you define the back? Oh yeah. But how do you define the back of the front of the lake?
The front of the lake is where the dam is. The back in this case is where the river comes in.
Okay. We're going to use that as a universal classification, or
I do, and I just declare everyone else wrong if they don't. Problem solved. It's not hard.
All right.
There's other reasons.
It's nice to know that there's some authority in the world still.
There's other reasons. The front of the lake is where Columbia is, and my friend lives an hour away because the lake is huge, so it takes a long time to get there.
Long Lake.
It's a huge man-made
mostly
lake.
Just a wide part of the river.
Well, it's dammed up, so it's Lake Murray in South Carolina. That's the lake. It's huge. I think all the lakes are man-made down here.
Well, I'm back.
You were gone? Uh-oh.
I was gone. Yeah, I'm sure you gave a very good answer about the lake. I just didn't hear much of it.
I did. I did. It was excellent. Best answer ever. That's not good. Why is your internet flaky? Like what? You gotta do some you gotta use you have to get a hardwired connection. Test the laptop, the same device, downstairs hardwired with testmy.net. I think it's testmy.net. And then take it wireless upstairs and do the test again and see if there's any difference. That's the troubleshooting technique to kind of discover these problems, whether they're internet problems or if they're just wireless problems.
I mean, the funny thing is that this didn't happen during the Moby Dick book club today. So, um,
Yeah. No, it's very
it was
strange. And
fine then. So, what
it's
I
probably a usage pattern problem on the internet in general then. But it'd be nice to know. Because back in the day, what would happen is the cable, your cable internet would be fast. You know, you get home from work, your cable internet would be slow. And there was nothing you could do about it. It's just more people on the internet. And then what started to happen, like my buddy had a system. He had 12 wireless devices, and I was like, all right, let me explain something to you. 4, that's it. You know, on newer systems it's different, but back then it was like 4. You can't do more than, there's mathematical
like a
reasons.
wireless mouse,
No.
wireless keyboard, like that kind of stuff.
No. He had 3 machines upstairs. He had 4 gaming machines downstairs. He had like a TV, or 2 TVs that, and I was like, no, just and then a laptop here and the kids' laptops, that sort of thing. So I was like, no, just wire everything. Right? Just wire the whole house. It's not that hard. So we did it in a couple hours, wired the whole house. And then all his internet problems went away, because what would happen is he'd be working from home, everything would be fine. Kids would get home, nothing would work. And he was like, wait a minute. And I was like, well, yeah, you've got too many wireless devices. On a wired network, it doesn't matter. It scales pretty well. Like, you add 100 machines to a wired network, it doesn't get any slower. But wireless, no. Wireless is way more sensitive to top end number of devices.
Yeah, because one of the last times that my internet went down in Fargo, it was a matter of the switch dying, and so I called our diocesan tech guy who also takes care of the bishop's house, and like, hey, this is happening, and he had me go and see if the lights were blinking, and they weren't, and so it's like dead switch right there, and we get the new switch. He ordered it on Amazon. It was shipped right to the house, and he's like, yeah, it doesn't matter what order they're plugged in. And I'm like, cool, like that's great. But what sort of black magic is this, where you could just plug all of the cables in there, and it doesn't matter which slot's the internet coming in and which slot is all of the other. They just so anyway. I'm still pretty firmly convinced it's actually magic.
It is.
Wired internet is, yeah. Like,
well, switches are designed to be equalizers, right? They're basically port multipliers. So they put everything on the same bus. That's all they really do. Whereas
still
routers,
looks like magic to me.
Yeah, routers are magic. Routers are, here's your LAN and here's your internet, right? And the two shall not mix, right? So that you've got to plug the WAN into the WAN port, or you're in big trouble.
Yeah, because that was the only piece of equipment I could find initially. So if you remember the one time I streamed from the basement, it's because I was plugged directly into the place the WAN came in. That switch down there was fine. So, because the Wi-Fi, I think they're running like Wi-Fi 4 there. It's not good. It's old. And I never use it. So anyway, Wi-Fi is, all this stuff is still magic as far as I'm concerned.
That makes sense. Yeah. Well, Wi-Fi's just got a lot more problems because there's just a lot more unknowns. You can't see anything. With a wired network, you got lights. You can figure out what's going on. With a Wi-Fi network, you don't have any of that. So it adds a bunch of layers of complexity, because regular radio interference can affect a Wi-Fi. So it's not like you can use a network monitor tool and find all the problems. With a wired network, you can pretty much use a network monitor tool and find all the problems.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Are you saying that there's a trade-off, the convenience of Wi-Fi?
There's a trade-off indeed. There's a cost to the convenience of Wi-Fi. That is a true statement.
Oh man, I thought everything was just going to work perfectly in my head and not have any problems.
It's weird that it would be this bad after it was this good just a few hours ago.
Somebody's probably just torrenting music.
That's
the priest who lives right above me. I don't see a whole lot of him, so I just accuse him of all sorts of things.
That's a good idea.
I think he's living on South Korea time. Hear him walking around at strange hours of the night. But I'd be tempted to do that too if, I was just here to get a biblical studies degree, and not really sure why the bishop's making me do that.
Is he from South Korea? Did he get sent all the way from there?
Oh yeah. And the poor guy, these biblical studies majors have just the most outrageous degree requirements, because it's like, okay, you're from South Korea. Yeah, no biblical scholarships written in South Korean or any kind of Korean or any kind of Eastern Asian language. So you're going to have to go and you're going to need to learn English and German in addition to ancient Greek and Hebrew. So he's got to be, speaking proficient in one of these and then reading proficient in another 3. And it's like, oh man, canon law just seems so much better. Just Latin's easy, Latin's simple, and English, and you could just do Italian, which is mostly, just pig Latin. Just Latin, but it's easier. They don't have to worry around with this German business. So yeah. But I just don't know what he's getting into up there.
He doesn't either. Don't worry. It's all a mystery.
It's probably better that way.
Does the does the church just not talk about your duty to your country? Do they just ignore all that and just stick to their lane?
I mean, I talk about it. It comes up around elections when we talk about our Catholic Church voters guide, which just gives you principles to inform your conscience. Doesn't tell you who to vote for because, the code of canon law says that priests aren't supposed to get involved in political parties. And B, IRS might do something about tax exempt status if we did that too much.
Right.
So, it's coming in from both sides. So, but when I was at St. John's, right? They had our virtues curriculum. Every week we had a virtue of the week. And I kind of took that as my, when I come in and do my classroom visits, I'm going to speak about the virtue of the week. That's going to be my thing. So Father Seitz comes in with the kids. It's definitely Father Seitz. I don't need kindergartners talking to me like we're equals. Sorry, where was I? Yeah. So 1 week it was the virtue of the week was patriotism. And I gave them this country is a great place and you're privileged to live here and you have an obligation to keep it running. Just remember that it's not my country, right or wrong, because you might have to love her enough to try and set her back on the right course. So that one time, the kids heard it. And it's listed as a virtue, proper patriotism, as with all these things. It's got to be the balance, the mean between two extremes. So you don't love your country so much that you excuse anything it does or participate in things that might be displeasing to God, but you also don't despise it because, you owe something to it.
Yeah, that's
Utterly reasonable take as far as I'm concerned.
yeah. So they do talk about it. So that's good.
I think the listing of patriotism, like calling it that, that would be a newer way of saying it. I think Thomas Aquinas would probably talk about it either probably under the heading of piety, actually. You'd have like filial piety, you'd have national piety, and then piety to God.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds like our boy Tommy right there.
Yeah, I would. Now, I don't have the Summa right here. I haven't studied that part. So I would want to, before I look, I was already overweight on my baggage. I wasn't going to put my 12 volume set of the Summas in there as well.
They have them at the library. They have them at the law library. Go grab them.
Yeah, I'm not there, and the library's closed. So
library's closed for the holiday.
It's got no. Well, actually, maybe because the gym was closed for the whole weekend. I haven't lifted weights in 5 days. It's really bad, Mark. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Wow.
Yeah, no, they closed it for the entire 4th of July weekend. Yeah, so anyway, I would want to actually look it up to see where the virtuous relation to your country comes from. But maybe I just will now that I'm talking about it so much. It just doesn't make for thrilling television. That's all. Watching me Google something.
It's not always thrilling television. But I'm glad you talked about proper order of obligations or duties and then rights as conveyed by the virtue of enacting those obligations or living up to them. Because that is definitely a conversation that has been missing. I don't know why. It just seems
it looks like piety. Important. Well, nobody thinks about it in those terms, right? Like, yeah, maybe it's dulia. No. All righty. I don't know where Aquinas treats where he treats how to relate to your nation. It might even be in the treatise on law. That thing's huge. Just doesn't stop. Yeah, piety in terms of reverence, Mr. Sanchez. Alrighty. Well, now I've got another thing to look up to figure out where Thomas Aquinas speaks of how to relate to your country, because it's important that you get that right in order that you don't get goofy in the head. We wouldn't want that. And no, you're looking up something.
I'm always looking up something. Yeah, I couldn't. There was no good way to Google search it quickly.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Anyway.
Someone's got a question here.
Yeah, I answered it while you were looking up piety in terms of reverence. It's
how was that an answer?
They're related. I said, yeah, they're related, right? Not piety in terms of a lot of people have only an image of piety. They don't actually have a concept of piety. So the image of piety is an old woman with a rosary, which is it's not wrong, but like there's more to it than that.
Right.
So, oh, hello, Nico. Welcome aboard. We are here. being very pious. I think I'm trying anyway. I'm trying. I don't know what Mark's doing. He exists in the darkness outside.
What? How? What? How did that happen? Wait. What? What relegated me to the darkness outside?
Sorry, dude. Them's the rules.
Whose rules? When? Where?
You're not inside. You're not inside.
I'm inside a bunch of
Right?
things. What are you talking about?
Inside the church. You're not inside the church, right? So you're outside. If Christ is the light and Christ is. Yeah. Okay. Well, never mind it then. It was mostly humorous. It was intended to be humorous.
Oh, okay.
But not all attempts at humor succeed.
A sort of apocrypha? No. Where did we get that from? What definition of apocrypha are we using here?
I mean, it depends on what. So, like apocrypha, right? Apocrypha is things that look like sacred writings but are not a part of the Bible. Right? Things that look like sacred writings. Yeah, and so I'm having a hard time seeing how this would apply to the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't look like Scripture, right? Nobody's sitting there saying we need to put this into the Bible. I don't know. Maybe it's in the Trump Bible, right? That's a brilliant game plan right there. He's using the King James version. He doesn't have to pay a dime in copyright fee.
There you go.
Gotta love it. So it's just on a different level, right? The Constitution's on a different level than the Bible. So I don't know how you get to it being a sort of apocrypha. It's definitely of a different sort of thing. And the sort of thing that you got to treat it as is just subject to God. And if the Constitution were to be displeasing to God, then we would be required to ignore it. So, yeah, you can participate. You can participate in these things, in the reverence shown to things greater than you or that came before you in different ways. And so you show it to the Constitution differently than you would show it to God, because God is before all things, right? And is.
Whoa. That's pretty major outage. All right. So your claim is that relates to the question of piety. Then we shouldn't have any piety towards the Constitution. No, that's not true. I mean, he said the opposite already, so I'm going to go with a no on that. There he is.
Got booted out of my own StreamYard account. Yeah, no, look at piety. Piety can come in different forms depending on what you're directing it towards. And maybe piety isn't the right word here, because I couldn't find. I only found parents listed under it in the virtue section. And when he treats of it as a gift to the Holy Spirit, then it's obviously directed towards God. So, like, you could just have different relationships with a different quality in that relationship that is proper to the object, right? So we need to have a certain amount of reverence for the Constitution under God, right? So not acting as if it's equivalent to Scripture or that it's infallible, because it's something that we human beings created and something that we're allowed to amend, right? Been 27 amendments to the Constitution since it was ratified by all the states. But it still is that which we could point to, especially as Americans, right? Because we're the United States, not the United Peoples of America. The states ratified these things. We still have to show it a certain amount of reverence, a certain amount of due reverence, because it's that which we all agree on and that which binds us all together in the same country. So you just treat it as a different sort of thing with a different sort of quality to it. And I think that solves a lot of your problems. The Constitution is the soul of the polis. Yeah, except we've amended our Constitution, 27 times in this country. And I think only one time was it done by a constitutional convention, and that was to get rid of prohibition. And then every other time it was proposed by Congress and then ratified by the states. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the Constitution is a device placed above the Republican government, which is democratically informed, that allows the people to have a modicum of control over the actions of the government, right? By appealing directly to the Constitution, which has been done. It was done a lot during fake news virus scam. And also replaces the king. The president doesn't replace the king, right? But the Constitution actually does. And because we didn't make that mistake of getting rid of the king without replacing the function, we've done pretty darn well.
Nico's asking, does the USA really submit to God? And that's a question that's too big for me. What I'll say is that I submit to God, at least when I'm behaving myself properly. And that informs how I live as a citizen of the United States. So, yeah, there's definitely things that I would change if I had the power to. And, the Lord has not seen fit to give me that power. So I guess those things don't need to be changed urgently. But I tried to submit to God. And so I have to have my own, relationship with this nation's government and my own function as a citizen. I got to figure out how that interacts with being Catholic. And this is what I got is, show up and try and vote for something that's good and obey any laws that are not unjust.
Yeah, I think the problem is people don't read the founder papers where it says explicitly, well, it's also one nation under God, but like it says explicitly this only works, right? It's a caveat right in the beginning. This experiment only works if God's at the top. I mean, it's 100%. It's zero ambiguity in the founding, in the founders' documents about this. And the problem is that the founding doesn't matter when other people take over. So as you get into the weeds about, well, who's directing the polis, right? And how, because its government doesn't direct the polis, right? Again, especially not in something where you have a constitution that constrains the government. That's definitely not happening. Then what is moving the polis towards the idea of progressivism as such? I have a video on that on navigating patterns, right? That's a psyop. There's no way to make the idea of progressive meaningful, right? It just doesn't make any sense.
I realized that my republic was founded on revolutionary values, which is basically Satanism. I realized I couldn't worship the state, salute the flag, etc. anymore.
What are
Also
revolutionary
don't have a
values?
national identity.
I don't understand.
If that's the
that would be.
If that's the way that you've not having a national identity, or the republic being founded on Satanism.
No, it revolutionary values. Like what even is that?
Well, we'll let him. We'll let him put an answer to your query into the chat here. Moving from Christendom to an apostolic mode, correct? The Constitution now seems to be contra to the missions of the apostolic mission.
What?
Oh gosh, the
Not
Constitution?
possible.
I don't know about the Constitution. Plenty of laws. There are plenty of laws that are contrary to the mission of the church, but Constitution hasn't gone that far yet.
The
Sure,
Constitution
yeah,
is just a document of constraints against the government. That's it. It doesn't function any other way.
yeah, Nico, if you want to come in, the StreamYard link should be posted.
Is it pinned?
It's pinned. It's pinned.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
right where
it's
it's
pinned.
supposed to be.
No, you're right.
I'm a
I didn't know. I'm
professional.
just asking. I don't.
This stupid priest, he doesn't know how his Wi-Fi works.
No, I never said anything like that.
I know.
Man, the
It's just fun.
accusations.
It's just fun to put words into people's mouths. Everybody knows that. It's why the media can't help themselves. They just
True. That was a true story, bro.
yeah, it's just like Donald Trump said he was going to go to the moon on hamburgers.
That was the best. Like by far, that was the best punk, and they fell for it, and it was so funny. It was just so funny. Like I can't even. Every time I think about it, I'm like, that just proves that the man is a genius, and that these dumbasses like to report on it that way. It's just like, I think you need help, bro. I think you got fooled by somebody you think is a fool, but actually, there's only one fool in that room, and it wasn't him.
Oh man. Yeah, but we're going to get political here, and we're just going to stay strictly on the level of constitutional law. To give a more complete answer to Mr. Sanchez, the Constitution affords a great amount of freedom for the Catholic Church to work, and right now, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't just take advantage of that rather than trying to revolutionize against it, or to entirely opt out of the political processes in our country would be a grave mistake, because we're still in a position where we could do some good. Yeah, I think that's about it. The whole thing isn't so lost that we can't. I know a little bit about Nico. I know a little bit about where he's from. His country might be a little more lost. The government might be beyond redemption at this point. So that's why I love America and I love living here.
Yeah, the Constitution in many ways is designed to be able to bypass the corruption of people running the government, elected or not, right? In other words, we have a solution to the bureaucracy. We have a solution to the sort of dark political system, or whatever you want to call it. Like we have a solution to that. It's called the Constitution.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All righty. Looks like we've got Nick here. Hello, Nick.
Hey.
All righty. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that kind of stuff. Hi, Mark. I'm Nick. I'm from Argentina. I don't have a lot of time. I don't know how long are you guys going to stream?
About another hour.
Okay. So I have to leave, but maybe I can come back later if there is still time. So I wanted to tell a little anecdote. Down here in Latin America, we have a lot of, let's call them liberal republics, and they are very similar. All of them have this sort of national myth, and since the revolution was in the Spanish Empire that the territory occupied what now is many countries, all of them have a different version of the same story. They were practically around 2 or 3 protagonists, very important generals that were involved in the Revolutionary War.
Mm-hmm.
And for, let's say, Venezuela, Bolivar is like their founding father. And for Colombia, Bolivar is too. And for Argentina, Saint Martin, Joseph of Saint Martin is the founding father. And it's like that. And each country grabs onto a little bit of the story, and that story is really important to them. It's essentially the same deal as 1776. It's the sort of story of we were oppressed, and then the revolution started. It's something like that. And the identity of every one of these countries is based on that story, right? So some time ago, when the whole Jordan Peterson thing started, I started watching political videos and the like, and I started getting into the history of how all of this stuff came about. And essentially, my argument for the thing of the revolutionary thing is that, is that essentially in that story of the revolution, that the whole identity of the people of my country and many others is based on, is in this idea that we, the people, decided to depose the, let's call them the ruler, the people that were above us, the king. For example, they used to call the Spanish gods, not God, Goth. The pronunciation, it's a little weird. As in, the gods that came down from Germany. Mm-hmm. Because even though they were related to them, they were trying to fight a war against them, so they needed to other them. And so they got this thing of, we are not Spaniards, we are Latin, we are Romans, and these are the gods, the barbarian gods. So they got this kind of, they turned their own king into the other enemy. So the whole identity of the country is, or most important and founding value is to kill your own father. We killed our own king. That's where our identity comes from. And that's essentially what I was trying to say in the comments. That that's why in this kind of the republics, the people have the right to riot, because the idea is that they are going to, every so often, people are going to take up arms against their own people who rule them and shoot at them, just like they did in the Revolutionary War. And because that is their founding value, at every level, that undermines everything, because all fathers are kings and all kings are fathers. So if your value is we killed the king, then suddenly all fathers lose
Yeah.
authority. There is a crucial weakness in the whole identity.
Yeah.
So
If identity matters, right? By the way, Andrew's completely wrong. French Revolution came after ours. They copied us. It didn't happen that way. If identity works that way, let's just assume that it does. It absolutely doesn't. We got rid of our king too, in the same exact way. Like the king founded the colonies, right? All 26, 13 of them, right? 13 tried to get the other 13 to join, right? They refused. Actually, it wasn't clear that all 13 here were gonna join, right? So we got rid of the king too, right? It's just it. We replaced him with a bunch of things, right? We split the functions of the king apart, and that's actually really important, right? They built a checks and balances system, and what you're describing with the sort of the constant taking up of arms, Jefferson, I think it was, proposed that.
Yeah,
He said we should have an armed rebellion against the government every 25 years or 20 years or something. So that, like, I get it. I think, and I do think, honestly, a lot of the problems in South America are America's fault. Like, just flat out 100%. Like, meddling and stupidity, and also a lot of copying. I mean, one of the reasons the French Revolution doesn't go well is because they're trying to copy the American Revolution. They don't understand any of it. And because they don't understand it, and I have a video on this on navigating pattern, because they don't understand it, they end up with Napoleon, right? Like that's what happened, right?
And we in Latin America, we take from the French, not from you guys. Even though there were a bunch of people that were liberal, like you guys were, in the end, the French influence won out.
Right. Well, the French deliberately infected all the Spanish countries, including like the Dominican Republic, right? And so a lot of those ideas, even though it was look, there's been 4 big revolutions, right? There's the English, the American, the French, and the Russian. I haven't done my video on the Russian Revolution yet, but I have videos on all the others. Basically, only one of them worked. That might be a hint. There might be reasons behind that. 250 years with pretty much almost identical form of government pretty much beats everybody, even Rome, because Rome changed governments. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm fairly sure Rome changed government types, more often than 250 years. So there's something there, right? And maybe we're at the end. That who knows? It could be with all that's going on. But like, what you copy matters, and if you copy the French, you're going to get the French, right? And the French are on their 5th republic. So yeah, I mean, if you copy the unsuccessful revolution, you're going to get a constant cycle of unsuccessful revolutions, right? I mean, France is teetering on the verge of their 6th republic right now. Maybe don't copy that. I don't know. They had the Napoleon thing. I don't know. Like, as role models go, France, it's nowhere on my list. It's a problem. But the thought is very pervasive, and it's infected here too, the postmodernism thought anyway, right? So France is very intellectually influential, which is, there are no good French intellectuals for me. So that's just how I slice it. So that's already the problem, is copying a failed attempt that has done nothing but caused death and misery and almost wiped out several countries in the process, or several peoples, I should say, cultures. It's probably not the best plan, but I know that a lot of places that we'll say aren't the United States are copying French models, even though we know they don't work.
Yeah. Listen, I have to go now, but maybe if I hurry, I can come back later in the stream.
That would be great.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Wonderful. Thanks for hopping on, Nick. That's really interesting.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, indeed. Oh man, my internet's still choppy. If you could see this graph, but I guess something that I wanted to say, and I would have said to Nick while he was here, was it looked like he was in a room in a house or maybe an apartment, but he was inside. He wasn't outside. Looked like he had lights on. Looked like he had clothing on his back, and that he had probably eaten something that day. And I don't know how it could be the case that wouldn't have come from his country. And so something good is still there. And I would hope that he finds a way to participate in what is good while being very mindful and cognizant of the flaws, let's say, in the founding of his we'll say his current government, his current form of government. And I think you're mentioning the current form of government is apropos, right? And your case that the Constitution of the United States of America, it's been modified, it's been amended, but the basic structure has stood since 1789, and that counts for something there. So, but the country, United States of America, is actually bigger than the Constitution. Constitution, maybe at the high point, and as you've helpfully pointed out, limits what the federal government can do, but the country is bigger than that, and the country can even transcend. With the grace of God, a country can even transcend limitations in its constitution. There was a lot of anti-liberal sentiment in the Catholic Church in the 19th century, right? Liberal, like Gregory the 16th in about 1839 wrote an encyclical that said freedom of speech is a retarded idea. Why would you go around allowing people to sell poison with the argument that, the antidote is also freely available? That's stupid, right? So, there was some of that anti-liberal sentiment, but the way Catholics in America were trying to, because they were like trying to get into society, right? They're like, well, our founding fathers governed better than their philosophy, or they legislated better than their philosophy should have allowed. That was kind of the argument they made there. And I always thought that was a curious turn of phrase.
Yeah, that's very very interesting. But I think a lot of people get wrapped up in the concept of identity now, and it's like no one and no thing has a single identity. Identity is not solving the problem you want solved anyway, but it is creating problems, right? Because you're a son or a daughter, you're a sister, a mother, right? It's on and on. You have lots of ideas. You're whatever you do for work. You're whatever you do for your hobby, right? You're whatever you do at the church.
And the identity, people get mixed up with identity too, because not only do they try to make it one thing, right? It's like, I'm a Sigma male, like, but they also like, okay, so you talked about a bunch of different things. You talked about being a brother, being a sister, being a father, being a mother, belonging to some kind of an organization. Those are all relationships. That's all in relation. Right? You'll see a ton of people trying to ground their identity, right? Their one identity on a particular quality that they have. Right. So, I'm a woman. Okay. Yeah. Sure. I'm a trans woman. Okay. If that's your identity, that's just a quality that's like inside of you, which is, again, with this whole Age of Gnosis business, I really need to get a card that I can put up for Age of Gnosis. Just so we can get it in people's head. Yeah. Maybe we should make somebody else do it. Yeah, because when you try and make your identity founded on a quality that you possess, you're trying to make yourself self-sufficient.
Yes. Right.
That you've got the fullness of everything that you need to be complete inside of my own person, and therefore I don't need anybody else.
Right.
Which
And that's
is
the individualism.
nonsense.
Yeah. That's the individualism that causes the intimacy crisis that leads to the meaning crisis that's causing all these problems effectively. Yeah. Yeah, it is that disconnection from the relationships, that inability to manage multiple relationships of different qualities and know, like, I talked about this on my live stream on Friday on my channel, like paying attention to Ukraine when you live in the US is kind of pointless, guys. I just, if you don't live there, like really, like what are you going to do? Right? And yeah, it doesn't mean you can't ever engage in any news on it, but like, where's your majority of your attention going? Because there's starving people in your neighborhood somewhere, right, or close to you that you could be helping.
Spiritually, at least. Spiritually, at least.
At least, yeah, you could be ministering to people like the one that was on my live stream. Clearly needs it, right? Like people need other people. And especially because of the problem you mentioned, like people are trying to have things inside themselves that are supposed to be outside themselves and include a relation, and that relation is supposed to include equality. And when you reduce identity down and then try to have it or consume it, I am this. It's like, what? No, all right. Then you destroy the world. But you're doing that. The world's not doing that to you. You're doing that to yourself and taking the world with you. Please stop. Please. Yeah. And it like
Yeah,
I said, somebody a post today about this, like somebody was saying like, well, yeah, I've got a solution to reverse the Enlightenment. I'm like, I don't know what you think the Enlightenment was. But like, first of all, you're not going to quote reverse it or like, no, that's not going to happen. Also, where's what things are bad about it? Like that'd be a good start, right? Now you can talk about the misapprehension of the Enlightenment, but like for example, all of the ideas that went into our government in the United States are Scottish Enlightenment ideas, plus a bunch of Plato,
not the Scotch.
right? A bunch of Plato, a bunch of Rome stuff, right? And couched in Enlightenment language, effectively, right? Zero French, by the way, no French thinkers at all, and they're just not in the founding papers. Like,
Right?
Just,
you're getting Hobbes at the very worst.
Yeah,
I don't think there's much Hobbes. There's a lot more Locke.
Right.
Locke was still wrong about a lot of things, but he was just less wrong.
Yeah. Hobbes had some good points, but not many. But that's the thing. They're mostly taking the language and taking advantage of the movement as such, as a philosophical movement, if such a thing exists, more like a movement of thought, and they're using that to inform the language, right, of the documents. And that's actually really important. So like, why would you want to reverse any of that? It's been wildly successful. I don't understand. And then it's like, what bad things do you think? Because like, it's weird, right? Because science will or people who are, we'll say, pro science, will equivocate on when the good stuff and the bad stuff happened, because they'll go all the way back to Galileo, lie about all that. By the way, everything they say about Galileo is just a flat out lie. It is complete fabrication. And then they'll say, yeah, but really the problem started at the Enlightenment, because that's when science is born. And I'm like, was science born with Galileo or with the Enlightenment? You gotta pick one, right? Because if it was, quote, born with Galileo and everything you said about Galileo is just a flat out lie, that has implications. And the implications are that A, the Enlightenment's no big deal because it doesn't really change the ball. And B, there's no conflict between science and religion, and there doesn't have to be. Like the church that birthed science is cool with science's existence. And if science isn't cool, there's that rebellious father killing spirit that Nick was talking about. That sounds familiar. That sounds like the same problem that the French had, right? And the English before them with the English Revolution. Same pattern. I don't know. It's an identical pattern. Maybe don't do that though. Like I don't get it. Maybe don't follow the pattern that leads to bad things. It's the thing I do. Like, you don't have to do that. I've found it
A
successful for me.
Question for you. Would you reverse the age of gnosis if you had the option?
Oh yeah, in a heartbeat. Right. But
And
I have a specific.
But the question is, what does reversing it mean? Right. If he were to say, I figured out how to overcome the problems with the Enlightenment, it'd be like, okay, but like reversing it, like, how are you going to go backwards?
There's no problem with the
How are you going to make a
Enlightenment.
process go backwards?
Yeah, but you can see. There's no. This is
If you
the
say so.
problem. If there's a problem with the Enlightenment, it is the misinterpretation of their work, because they remove the frame. So much like with Plato's Republic, almost everybody removes the frame of Plato's Republic immediately. Many of the frames, like they remove 90% of the context and then quote him. And it's like, I think you're missing all the important parts, but like we'll blow past that, right? So if you do that with the Enlightenment, or even with Descartes, and this is an argument that John Vervaeke's made a couple times, right? Like, Descartes' not the problem. It's the same argument, by the way, that's made with Luther and Calvin, right? They're not the problem. It's the people that came after them that misinterpreted their work. That is partly true. It was more true for some than others. Maybe a lot less true for Luther and Calvin. Luther's work was not misinterpreted at all, I would say. Not even a little bit. He just didn't understand the consequences. And when he saw them, he did, as far as I can tell, confess and repent. Of course, it was too late. It didn't do any good. Not for the people that still follow him. For, again, like, why would you follow him? Unsuccessful person caused lots of deaths. Maybe don't follow that. I don't know. Like, maybe it's me. I don't know. Calvin ran Geneva, killed a bunch of people. Not a great guy. Maybe don't follow the not a great guy. You know, like, I don't know. But with the Enlightenment, like, everything was God first with them. And if you put the Enlightenment framing underneath the God thing, it all just works. And there's nothing wrong with it. And it's flawless. Not to say all the arguments are correct, but like, they don't lead to bad results, even the bad arguments. Because and that's what you should expect, right?
You're taking the Enlightenment as a bit of a monolithic whole here. And that's probably, I mean, people do this all the time, so I'm not accusing you of any particularly spectacular wickedness. I look at a guy like Voltaire, right? And Voltaire would have probably acknowledged creation, probably would have acknowledged the existence of God, but there was definitely a rebellious streak in him, definitely against the church, like 100%. And, you know, like, church and state were a little too cozy for my taste back in those days. I have an insane, purely hypothetical political theory that I think might work. It's called hostile integralism. You could ask me about it sometime when my internet is working a little bit better. So maybe, you know, he certainly probably had some legitimate complaints about the church, but like, at what point does, you know, acknowledging God but rebelling against the church become just a little bit too impractical to actually manage? Because that's what you start to see, especially with the later Enlightenment figures, is you've got, they'll talk about the supreme being and all of that. And it's like, hey, praise God that they weren't that wrong, because, you know, atheism's still retarded. I said it and I'm not taking it back. But they have this problem with the human institution, the divine human institution, which mediates that divine influence. And you see it definitely in Voltaire and Thomas Paine very clearly. Both of those easily fall into that Enlightenment milieu there. It's just a problem right there, right? Maybe it wasn't common to all of them, but it was certainly there in a few of them. You had the seeds of rebellion being planted.
Well, it's not the seeds of rebellion in Paine's case. I mean, Paine is fomenting a rebellion on purpose, right? And also, as near as I can tell, deep
yeah.
regret there.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Nobody quotes Voltaire for anything ever, so I get people lump him in with the Enlightenment, but like he doesn't have anything in common with any of the other Enlightenment figures, and nobody quotes him ever for anything, ever, as near as I can tell. He's just never. He's not quoted in any government's papers. He's not.
So you're saying that he didn't actually pilot the ship?
No, no. He was a figure in the time period when all these other figures were around.
How is my internet doing? I'm spending half of this stream looking at Task Manager over here.
You're lagging a bit.
And he was,
other than that,
he was cavorting with Enlightenment figures. He was at the same parties, at least.
Yeah, sure. So what? I mean,
no, you're lagging.
No, yeah, they all mingled. That's a human universal throughout time. Like I don't like. What do you? Right. This is the old argument about George Washington was playing chess with somebody in debtor's prison after the Revolutionary War. Like, okay, so what? Like I don't understand. A lot of people keep people around because they're funny. Okay, or listen to this guy's retarded ideas. Like that happens all over the place. Like that happens all the time. But without, like, he's not cited. That probably means they either kept him around for amusement or they kept him around for contrast and said, like, well, this is a stupid idea. Let's make sure we don't make this mistake. I don't know. Like, I bet nobody's out there going, well, the government runs this way because Voltaire said, like, nobody quotes Voltaire.
Okay. That's a pretty decent argument. You can make the argument that he didn't have that much of an effect and therefore shouldn't be counted. It's like, well, that makes sense. I'll follow it.
Well, he might have had an effect, but it might have been a completely negative.
I mean,
effect.
John Vervaeke didn't see him being worthy of being included in Awakening for the Meaning Crisis, as far as I can tell. Right.
He's mentioned like offhandedly, but again, no one quotes him. Like literally, no one ever quotes him. Right, unless they're trying to make a snarky remark about something. Nobody says like, the thought of Voltaire on this subject. Nobody does that, right? And then the question is, what was the effect? Like again, like the Marquis de Sade had an effect. It wasn't the one he wanted to have. Voltaire had an effect. It probably wasn't the one he wanted to have. No. Rousseau had an effect, not the effect he wanted to have.
No,
we know that. Like that's certain.
I think Voltaire ended up being one of those guys who ended up regretting the French Revolution.
I think they all did. Like I think pretty much everybody involved in that project got disillusioned real quick, right? And either they blamed the Jacobins or one of the other numerous factions that were vying for power, right? And that was the problem. It was a splitting apart. We behead the king, the body splits apart immediately. All the parts vie for control of the body. None of them can do it, and then you get Napoleon. If you want Napoleon, that's how you get Napoleon. France's greatest French general, who wasn't French. I don't know what to tell you. France is a mess.
Okay, Voltaire died in 1778. At the age of 83. So he did not make it to see the revolution, I think. (1778) would be before the revolution really got into full swing, right? That was like a 1780s phenomenon. I have to look that up too. People think I'm educated just in canon law.
You're only educated in canon law. That's the problem. No, but I mean everybody, all the
forgotten everything but my name in canon law.
If you start reading any contemporary sources, like Mary Wollstonecraft, who we talked about on the Patriarchy is Good video on navigating patterns, right? Like, it was all regret. Like, oh, I thought the revolution was great, and I was there watching the king get beheaded, and realized, wow, he's kind of regal and noble, and why? What's wrong? Oh no, they killed the woman. They beheaded Marie Antoinette. No, that's not what I wanted. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I gotta get the hell out of the country because they're coming for me. Yeah, Mary, they're coming for you. That's every contemporary story out of the French Revolution. It's all of them. They're all the same story, right? Different players, but it's the same regrets. It's the same, like, well, I thought it was going to unfold this way, and it all went horribly wrong. And Don's got a good point. Yeah, sure. You get Robespierre. Robespierre was snubbed by the king when he was young, and like, yeah, that one incident explains the whole stupid thing. That's like, why is everything so easy? And yet people are like, oh, I don't know what happened. Like, I can tell you what happened. It's not that much of a mystery, guys. You might have a gap in your historical knowledge, but like, that's it. So, and the French are following the English.
Yep, Voltaire. Yeah, bad news. Definitely bad news. Voltaire died long before the French Revolution, so he did not live to regret it. By definition,
that's too bad. But like I said, everybody involved in the revolution regretted it. Everybody. And when they were alive and they wrote about it, like, for real. Like, it's not hard. Like, that should be a hint. Like, I don't, let's follow the philosophy of this person who killed millions of people, or the serial killer, or whatever. It's like, I know, let's not.
Have you ever read the last will and testament of King Louis XVI?
No.
It's worth reading. I mean, he was in the carriage on his way to being beheaded, so it's not very long. But it's, he gets painted as like the buffoon or a tyrant or somebody who's in over his head. But then you read that letter, and he's got a certain, virtuous, masculine nobility to him, and it'd be worthy of emulation, because there wasn't any like whining or complaining about him, being mistreated, which he was. But just commending himself and his family into the eyes of God. Sorry, that tickled my fancy.
That was good.
Yes. Well, I should offer a mass for him, for the repose of his soul.
I knew he was sick. Did you ever read anything he wrote? It's pretty obvious, but.
Oh boy. Oh my.
No. So
you
you notice the pattern, right? Like, the people at the English Revolution go, wow, the king just pretty much walked up to his death, made like a comment, and went gracefully. Weird, right? And then the French go, I know what we'll do. We'll do what the Americans did. We'll paint the king as a buffoon, because that's what we did. Which was a lie, by the way. I mean, it was true in a way, right? The specifics were a lie, to sell the the movement effectively, which needed to be done, because again, it was more true than false in a way, right? Because George had lost his mind. Like, he funded the colonies, pulled support for them when Parliament came a knocking, and Parliament was controlled entirely by the largest corporation the world has ever seen, right? And then decided, no, we can't let them go. And it's like, no, dude. Yeah, that's a little crazy. Like that, you shouldn't act like that ever, right? And so the French are like, aha, we'll do that. And that's part of the problem is that much like the English Revolution, same pattern, right? That people go watch the king die, and then they're like, oh my goodness, he's regal, right? Because they thought he was a doddering fool in both cases, and no, he's very regal and noble. And they're like, what happened? We were told something and it's not true. Like we're here watching it. It didn't manifest. It's like, yeah, that should have been a hint that you've been psyoped, but no.
I mean, that might be part of the difference in the American Revolution is we could get out from underneath the king's authority without actually killing him.
Well, we weren't under the king's authority. That was the problem. This is what everybody misses. The whole argument of the colonies is that Parliament doesn't have the right to do X because we were funded by, chartered by, and granted our existence by the king. There wasn't even a parliament. It didn't exist when the colonies were founded. It wasn't there, right? And so that's a huge difference. Like it's huge.
Oh,
Hey.
hello. You're muted right now, corner
Hey.
citizen. But I'm just gonna. This is just something everybody has to go through it. All right. So it's not anything special for you, but I do have to flash this up on the screen here if it'll actually work. So just a little rule that we have on my live stream is we don't speak about supposed mystical bodies.
Did he cut out?
To start
Probably.
working again. Here we go.
What?
Dealing with the laggy
Well-
connection tonight.
Sorry, what was the rule?
It was that banner.
We don't talk about a supposed corner of the internet here because we've got disputes about its ontology. That's it.
Oh.
It's a debate amongst
Dang.
monks mostly.
Dang.
My most
very
viewed-
continue.
Yeah, no, it's my most viewed video on this channel where I go into my reasons for it. And I didn't want to make the video, but I just got tired, so I made it. So if you want to dig into it, you can listen to that video. The first 10 minutes, so just my case. So I'm only saying that on account of your username. I usually don't berate people the second they get in here, but we had to. And you've got a crucifix in your background, so I like you already.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. So when you say ontology, is it the corner's way of knowing something or the existence of the corner at all?
I don't think
we
it's
don't
one
even
thing.
talk about okay.
And I don't think it's one thing. I think it's actually a bunch of different little things. And having a bunch of different little things isn't necessarily bad. But when you go around talking about it as if it's something that's one thing, and it's actually a bunch of different little things, and you're basically setting people up for, hold on, wait a minute, I thought we were doing this, but you just did that. And you're just going to have hurt feelings, right? So you understand that there's actually a bunch of different little things happening that are taking place around the same figure, that being Dr. Peterson. And I think it actually solves a lot of problems because it's like, they're doing something different over there, you know? Over on Grail Country, they're doing this stuff with tarot cards. And then over on Jacob's Ladder, there's a bunch of Jew stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, because they're doing something different, you know? Here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with that, and I don't want to derail your conversation, but I do think that you can definitely cordon off a principality of the corner. Not that it's going to do one thing, but there is like ways of I mean, I think that I mean, in the same way you can call something the Enlightenment. It's like it has a lot of components.
The thing is
we
we don't have any way
any
of
movement a movement. And even if you say like, oh well, this is
Yeah,
the most
it's,
effective part of something, or this is the part that it's going to be known
So,
for, that doesn't mean it
there's a
didn't
few
have those
things.
original parts. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. No, it's my stupid laggy internet connection here. There's a few things. The Enlightenment, I think, is a after the fact categorization. I don't think. I mean, I think they would have talked. Fellas like Thomas Hobbes and Spinoza would have talked about the new movements and the new ideas they were engaging with, and what's been afforded by the printing press and the breakdown of the Catholic censorship. They would have talked about all these things, but I don't think they would have called themselves the Enlightenment. A second thing is, oh gosh, I might still have the slide here, right? So I think my take on this little corner of the internet is that Dr. Peterson is actually at the center of this, because without Dr. Peterson, you don't have any Vanderklay, you don't have any Pageau, you don't have any Vervaeke. And those are the four acknowledged pillars of this. And the thing is that people are dealing with Dr. Peterson in different ways, right? They're engaging him. They have unlike participation in his ideas, right? So you've got all of these different ways where you can participate in this kind of central thing, which is a looser kind of organization than an analogy of proper proportion, where if it's an analogy of proper proportion, you'll actually have everything participating in the same pattern on every different level. So ultimately going all the way up to the Trinity, the Father and the Son, the founding fathers of the nation, the Pope to the Church, Bishop to the priest, the earthly Father to the Son, and so on and so forth. So I think something like the Church has like participation on every level, and so it can be talked about as one thing, whereas something like the phenomenon we're observing around Dr. Peterson on the internet has unlike participation, so you can't actually call it one thing. And I promised myself I wasn't going to talk about this anymore.
Good job, Father. But you did all video on it. It is your most popular video. It was an excellent video too, by the way. And you can watch people be converted to the idea live on that video. It's right in real time. It was great. It's a fantastic video. But like the Enlightenment,
you can keep your username.
Yeah. But the Enlightenment, for example, like this isn't that hard, right? Like you need the Dark Ages and you need the Enlightenment. You can't remove one or the other. Right? The Dark Ages roughly correspond to the Middle Ages, but not really. Like the Enlightenment is the rediscovery of the texts of Western canon, right? The Roman and Greek texts. That's what it is, right? But that doesn't make any sense if it wasn't the Dark Ages before, right? It's an Enlightenment. What are you shining light on? Right. And then all of a sudden it makes sense. It's like, oh, okay. Like that frame works, right? Because you can center people around it and you can throw people out of the circle pretty easily, actually, right? Instead of saying there was the Dark Enlightenment or the Counter Enlightenment and the blah, you don't need to go through all that nonsense just because you find a problem with the framing, right? You can maintain the framing and just keep it at the right level of analysis, and the problem never appears. And that's why I said, like, one quotes Voltaire. Nobody says like Voltaire inspired me to do this, put this piece of governmental statement inside the founding documents of the United States, which led to these pieces of content. That never happened. That's good to know. Thank goodness.
Yeah,
we got Locke, but we don't have Voltaire. Yeah, so.
I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about this topic, but I guess with the corner, I mean, I don't view it as like you were saying, like participation, all levels are going to be the same. I view it as like a frontier where almost all of the new ideas that are coming out of this movement are going to die and go away and just be like thrown out. And then some are going to live on, but because you can say when that process happens at the end, you can say, oh, this is actually what happened. This is the circle we're going to pull through. This is the through line of what's happening. That doesn't mean that at the beginning you can then say, well, this is how it's going to end. Because
how's that different from everything else that ever happened?
Well, I think that's a process that happens all the time. Absolutely. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. So it's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's a feature of the world that is constant. So what are you drawing a line around? Like, what are you drawing a border around to name something?
If I said, what pulled my phone off the desk and it was gravity, I mean, you could say, oh, well, things going from potential energy to kinetic energy is just always happening. But that still describes the phenomena. That's still like it.
Right. You can do a general for specific problem, or you can just describe to me what the quote flotilla or whatever has in common, that it has a similar name. Because this is the identity problem we were talking about earlier. Like, everyone's trying to throw things into a single identity when nothing ever had a single identity or ever will.
Yeah, it's like if you have a new technology, let's say the synthesizer, and you have a bunch of artists using this synthesizer and creating music, and you have a bunch of bands explode, but then let's say, only one band becomes popular, and then you get Daft Punk out of that, and Daft Punk can point to a band from the 1970s. They say, this is the band that inspired us. But there was a whole fleet of different bands using that.
Right.
Using that technology of the synthesizer, and almost all of them get 0 listens. All of them, go away. But they all sparked from that initial invention of the synthesizer, and then they had to go through a process of
Look, this is great. Then that doesn't exist. Right? Exactly. Right? Because the one thing is Peterson, and then you get the Peterson sphere. Yes, you do. That would be the correct name. And all other possible names can't be correct.
Yeah, but there'd even be subgenres within the synthesizer.
Maybe not. But you can't identify them, and there's many of them, not one. So you can't give it one name. I agree. So
but I'm
so the oneness is still in the same place and hasn't moved.
So
the oneness you're saying. Sorry, continue, Father.
Yeah. It's the big contention I have is the phenomena that we're witnessing with Dr. Peterson and YouTube channels of various sizes and the Discord servers and whatever other platforms that people are vaguely associated with each other on. My argument, I know historically I have overstated this argument, so I'm more modest and moderate in my old age now. Is it's poorly named.
What?
That's
as unified as it is?
The thrust of the argument. Yeah, when you talk about a corner, you're thinking of one thing, right? And the corner of my room starts there and it ends there, and that's it. And like I can circumscribe it. I can tell you all of its features. It's solid enough to survive definition. And my point is I'm just going to call out Nate Heil on Grail Country here. He's doing divination with tarot cards, right? And like that's kind of a no for me. That's not something that I would ever encourage anybody to do. If you're looking for a vaguely analogous exercise, I think you would do far better meditating on scripture than doing that, right? And so I have to look over at Nate Heil over on Grail Country, and I just got to say, he's a friend of mine. We can cooperate on certain things, but he's over there doing something else entirely, and I'm only vaguely connected because I'm doing something else. Look over at Jacob's channel, and Jacob says things which really make Christians' ears itch. He doesn't have nice things to say about St. Paul. He's told me that the fact that I'm voluntarily celibate is a mistake, and it's against Jewish teaching. And and Jacob is also a friend of mine, right? And I know I've seen him do this sort of thing to lots of people, and I know it comes from him taking Dr. Peterson very seriously when he says that silence has huge costs if it's practiced too often. And so he speaks out a lot because his family had to flee from Iran in 1978 due to a revolution. And that motivates him dramatically. So it's basically a matter of naming this thing properly, not sitting here acting like there isn't something that's coming through here. And I just think the Peterson sphere is a better name because it just gives you the sense of the space in which people are all around something in the middle, but they're in their own spaces around it. It's like a Dyson sphere where, you know, a star went off and we're trying to collect all of the energy out of it with the system of satellites. So that's the whole point. That's the whole point.
Yeah, that's the synthesizer in your example. That's what it is. It isn't anything. It can't be anything else.
Yeah, I don't think we're that far apart on this, you know, and I agree with most of your analysis. I just think that I've experienced it like events that are all connected. So with below the synthesizer, you could say there's punk synthesizer. I don't know enough about this music genre, but like you can do subgenres. So yeah, I'm perfectly fine saying that within the orbit of the Peterson sphere, there's suborbits where mini moons have moons of their own, whatever we want to call it. That's you know, the sun has planets, the planets have moons. That's fine, but I don't think that, you know, that's the same.
It's not helpful, but yeah, you can do unhelpful things. And yes, this is what
that's crazy. Of like all of Peterson, so all of Peterson's movements, you have probably millions of people who have their own interpretations of Peterson, and you're going to say all of those people are just, oh, it's just a Peterson movement. It's like that's crazy. I mean, that's
crazy... the thing they have in common, though. Like naming is about commonality; it's not about difference.
Yeah, but it stops being helpful if the level of analysis is too high. So
they're not helpful. That is also true. I agree. They are not helpful, and they are making everything worse. And they know about it, and they complain about it, and they don't fix it.
The Peter, what? Sorry, what's making?
They have their own little channels, and they're like, we all have too many channels. They said it the other day on Twitter. Oh, we need to slow our roll. There's too much content coming out. Okay, I agree. You guys should all cooperate instead, but they won't, right?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we're agreeing with the mechanisms. I just think I find it more helpful than not helpful because, like music, almost all bands go away, and the Beatles will last for whatever hundreds of years.
Encouraging people who should go away to not go away is not good. I'll just say it flat out.
Yeah, but the level at which that is good. Yeah, but the level of who makes that decision and how, like, when the margin you approach, like, okay, I'm going to wrap up shop, is made by the individual who's bearing the cost, so the person who's making the channel. So if I say, you know, if I think I wouldn't do what they're doing, but I'm deriving value from it, I'm not the one to decide that they shouldn't keep going. It's the channel creator. So if they want to make videos with 50 views and I get some sort of benefit, it's not my job to tell them like you're an idiot. Wrap up shop.
No, it's not your job. That's also true. That's also true. That doesn't interfere with anything I said because I
don't think we're disagreeing. You know, mostly. I'm just saying.
No, we are because you're defending something you can't even name, and I'm telling you shouldn't.
A subgenre of the a suborbit of the Peterson sphere that you admitted
which suborbit is real. Which is it, and what does it? What is it? Where are the bounds of it?
Okay, so there's the big. We could describe it as the big sun.
Which? Don't describe this.
We just went from describing, Mark. We were just using this exact analogy, so I don't know why you're being hostile. I don't want the
analogy. I want the actual example.
You brought up the analogy. You brought up.
If you have a thing, if you have a thing, just tell me where the thing is and what it is and where the.
Okay.
All right. About 20 minutes ago, I said I didn't want to make my Peterson sphere video because this is what happens. People think that they're doing the same thing. Then they find out that they're not really doing the same thing. And then there's a lot of intensity and hurt feelings, right? So I'm going to say to my new friend, Corner Citizen, Mark does this to everybody. Don't take it personally, right? It's just kind of a function of his nature. Yeah, I don't like yelling. I don't like yelling. So here we go. Let's get back into it. I just wanted to turn the volume down a little bit, turn the heat down a little bit, just because I'm not big into yelling. So,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying the discussion, and I appreciate Mark's candor and vehemence. So I have no problem with those qualities. The only thing I would say is that whether you say there's one quality that makes this subsphere, we already talked about there's a Peterson sphere. We all agree that there's a Peterson sphere, correct? Or not correct?
Oh, a bunch of people don't. But
Well, everyone here, I mean, sorry, to be clear.
I have no idea if you agree. We certainly agree.
You agree, I agree. Sorry. So, okay. So that underneath that Peterson sphere, there is other things that branched off from it. Like in I think Father Eric showed a diagram of other things that were branching off of it in his slideshow presentation. And my only point there was that one of the branches, whether they share a propositional agreement with each other, I think they definitely share a where those ideas came from idea. And I would say that's at least partially the delineation of what I would call the corner. But that's, is that they share, like in the same way that things that people...
I don't know what they share. Like, I still don't know what they share.
Yeah, but people who have the same mother don't have to share any propositional or like, I believe this,
no,
or
they
I'm
don't.
Catholic
But they
or
do
Jewish,
share the
but they
same
share...
mother.
Yeah,
right?
but
so you reference back to the thing they share.
Yeah.
Still true.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that even if the idea is all that they share in terms of their quality is that they descend from one thing, that's still enough of a connection. So that
which is fine. Then you name it the connect. You name it the mother, right?
No, yeah, but the mother is not just Peterson. The mother is then through PVK, and then these things that are branched off.
No, the mother's still Peterson and always will be, and the derivatives are still derivatives. Like that's how it works.
Well, if Peterson's the grandmother, it would be PVK the mother, and then all the children.
But he's not. So
okay, well, and that's fine. I mean, we can have that discussion because I don't think you can. I don't think the qualities that they share are fully encapsulated in just Peterson. I think that there's a grandmother, mother, child distinction, but that's just, I mean, I don't even think there's more to like wring out of this discussion. Is we just disagree here.
If anybody could name it, anybody at all, that would be great. But it gets suspicious when no one can, right? And there's lots of people trying. It's a little weird. That's all.
Yeah, but
it's like if I ask you for the reference in Plato's Cave where there's any individual that breaks out of Plato's Cave and 0 people can tell me where that is, and then I read the book and that's because it's not there, I kind of suspect that they're lying, right? Like that seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, I just wouldn't put it at a quality. I think it's hard to name because it's not a propositional, we all believe X. It's not a creedal thing. It's a thing of...
That's
in
fine.
the same... Yeah. And so
those things don't have names. I'm also fine with that. They're not nameable. That's fine. That's perfectly fine.
But
why does everything have to have a name if it doesn't have anything in common with anything else? I don't understand the need to tie things together that aren't together because they don't share anything by your own admission. That just doesn't make any sense. That's all.
Speaking of things that make sense, if I look out the windows, it's dark. And what darkness means is that rational creatures go to bed. So I end the stream. I always end at 9:30. So
no worries.
We're just cutting it off. We're cutting it off. Hey, Mr. Corner Citizen, glad you're here. Anytime you feel like you want to show up, just go ahead and show up.
Yeah.
You got the crucifix in your background. You're even doing better than I don't have one.
Yeah. Well, we met at the Chino conference very briefly. Very briefly.
Okay. It was like 300 people there.
So no. I don't even think we spoke. The only reason I knew is because of your dress. So that might be a connection, a way in which we where the reason I'm here might be from the Chino conference more than just me from listening to Dr. Peterson. But we can wrap up the night, you know. But yeah.
I'm gonna go listen to my own advice. So good night, and
Yeah, nice meeting you,
God
Mark.
bless you all. Good night. Good night. Good night. God bless. Ending the stream.